Hello, everyone. I am Danielle Kilcullen. I am going to walk you through the building blocks content through this video today instead of us meeting. So we will have two videos, one for week 8 and one for week 9. So something you will need for this video is your building blocks book. You will also need a pen and paper to take some notes. Feel free to pause this video now and go and get those materials. So I'm going to share my screen so we are walking through the same material together. So again, pause the video now if you need to go and get your book, a pen and paper so you can take some notes. You will see here the building blocks, volume 1, week 8. And so if you have your book, you should be on page 153. This is the orange spiral book. And so week number 8 comes at the end of 3 weeks of counting. And you'll see here that the big ideas are counting, one-to-one correspondence, comparing number, and subitizing. These have been some big ideas that we have followed or had in the past. There is nothing new for week number 8 as far as our trajectory levels. I would like for you also to think about gathering your week number 6 and 7 small group record sheets so you can start to plan for week number 8. When we move on to page 154, you see this green box here that we often, when we're together, often take a pause here and look at this box. This again will show us our trajectory levels for week number 8. We have object counting, comparing and ordering, subitizing, numerals. And so I've mentioned to you in the past, if you gather your small group record sheets, so you have 2 small group record sheets for this week. One game is number jump. And you also have number race. So at the top of your small group record sheets, you would write the following questions as a guide for you. So object counting, what size groups can the child label and produce or produce? That would be connected to the number jump activity and the number race activity because they are both labeling and labeling and producing numbers in both of those small group activities. And we'll cover that in a moment. What types of groups does the child identify? And so there's going to be an opportunity for them to compare groups of numbers. Subitizing, as you know, we've been doing this since the very beginning of our time together. So we're still working with groups up to 5. And the subitizing cards, you know that I have done them on paper plates. And so they look like this, or you can also do them on paper and fold them. Okay, and then numerals. Can the child read numerals and documenting which numerals the child can read? Math throughout the year. We have our counting jar that comes back week number 8. And the teacher, you can add a number of items and have the child count them out. We're still staying with lower numbers. You may also be able to go up to about 5. Children might be able to count, beyond 5 at this point. Numerals every day. So really pointing out the numerals in street signs, food containers, the clocks in your classroom, and newspapers and so on. Wherever you have numerals in your classroom, you would be able to show point them out to your children. This is also, these two are both math throughout the year activities are easy for parents to do at home. Literacy Connect, the Literature Connection, you can find some of these books on YouTube and you can share your screen during your virtual experiences. So sometimes families have these books or similar books with similar objectives. And so these books help develop counting. You want to stick with that same objective. And again, you can find these on YouTube if families don't have them. So that can be a suggestion that you make. So the objectives of this week: to produce a group of 1 to 5 objects, to make a group equal in number to another group using one-to-one correspondence, to count to count objects or steps in a path. We'll talk more about that because that will really connect to the small group activities that you'll do this week. Organize in a line up to 5, to compare two groups to determine whether or not they have the same small number of objects, to quickly recognize the number of objects in a small group when shown only briefly. That connects back to the subitizing activities. Okay. I'm going to move to this here. We have our whole group activities for week number 8, small group, computer, hands-on centers. So let's start with our hands-on centers because you'll recognize some of these from week number 6 and 7. And so you have here compare game, and you'll remember that when the last time we were together, we covered week number 7 when you're using the counting cards. Get just enough. That is a table setting is kind of a way I like to think about this activity. Here, the materials that they suggest that you have on your hands-on math area is paint brushes and cups, plastic bottles and tops, small boxes and toy cars, toy cups and saucers. So these are some materials that you may have used in the past, or it might be something new, a new material that the children can play the same game. And so both of these games for are from week number 7. Find the number, compare game, get just enough again. So for Wednesday, you'll see places, scenes is listed as your hands-on math center. And so these are your places, scenes. You can find these in the back of your teacher resource book. You might also be able to find them online. And as I have suggested in the past, you can have your parents color them. You can also have the child, if they're virtual, make a picture of their room, and that's what they use for their places, scenes activity. We have pizza game 1 that returns here. And then those games repeat themselves for Thursday and Friday. If week 8, I think you have 2 week 8s listed in the calendar. First, it's starting next week, which is the Thanksgiving holiday week. And so centers are closed on Thursday and Friday. So you're covering the first 3 days, and or in the TE, in the teacher edition, it always has this information at the very top of page 156 that tells you to complete Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday of each week if you have a short week. So that's some guidance there. Wednesday and Friday are normally repeated activities. Okay, let's jump in. When we look at Monday, I want to point out Where's One. Where's One is a big book that you also have access to electronically. And we're going to come back to that in a moment. But you're really focusing on the numeral 6. Listen and count is actually a really fun activity. where you read Blueberries for Sal. Now, Blueberries for Sal is a rather long book, and so I just want to highlight that. Maybe there are certain pages that you can read just to get the idea of how you will do this whole group activity. And so Blueberries for Sal, they talk about berries going into the bucket and making a sound. And so you're going to create a same sort of opportunity for children to use their listening in order to count objects or count sounds that they hear. And so this is really a great activity that I would say with your assistant teacher or your co-teacher for you to model what this will look like. And so if you are doing this virtually, it works out. It works out fine. So your co-teacher will support you in this. And so you would give the children the just direction that you're going to make a sound and they are to count the number that they hear. And so a co-teacher could do something like this. One teacher is tapping. The other teacher is counting on their fingers. And so then you ask children, how many did you hear? Some children will say 3 because they don't need to count. Some children may count 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's an example of how you can do this activity if you are virtual. I'm not sure if you can find Blueberries for Sal on the internet, but you might be able to find it. Again, it is a very long book, and so I would suggest that you read only a number of pages. So the materials that you'll see here on the left-hand side of your page, it has the counting book, which is Blueberries for Sal, a coffee can, marbles. And so one thing I will say, whatever materials you choose to use, you want to be careful that the marbles are not bouncing around or moving around on the bottom of your cup or coffee can, because then children will hear multiple sounds. So another way to do this is taking that same coffee cup idea, and of course you are tapping inside the coffee cup with your pen or pencil. Again, the idea is that children are not seeing you tap on the side or tap on the table. They are using their hearing in order to count the sounds. And again, this is an easy one that you and your co-teacher can model. You want to also pour, so if you're doing this in person, you want to pour out the marbles and count them. Okay, you could use a similar strategy if you are doing this virtually. You pour out the marbles or the whatever items you're using to count so that children can see that they got the number right. So that's a really great activity to play. I suggest playing it. Children have a lot of fun doing it. So as I mentioned before, part of your hands-on math centers are week number 7's games. And you'll see here, you know, I always like to point out your monitoring student progress box. If children are having difficulties with the compare game, use fewer cards, so 1 to 3. And if children are able to excel in this game, or if you want to make it a little more challenging, maybe you use numeral cards. Or cards with more dots. Okay, so 6 through 10 could be an option here. Okay. I want to remind you of these reflection questions. This one is a good question to ask if children have played the compare game. Right? So perhaps you or your co-teacher is sitting in the hands-on math center, or even if you're playing this virtually, you will ask the children, when you played compare game, how did you figure out who had more? Right? So some children may say, when one is big and one is little, I can just see it. They may know the numerals and they have a clear understanding of the number line. Those are things that children can share with you. Okay, something else that comes up on Tuesday is this warm-up activity, listen and copy. And so the teacher, you're clapping 1 to 5 and having the children clap quickly or slowly, right? It's a matter of, so you're keeping the numbers low, but it's how you're doing it as far as like pace. And so that's something to think about. You're thinking about creating patterns. In a few weeks, we will start to talk about patterns in the building blocks curriculum. Okay. Okay, so number jump. You have number jump and number race. I'm going to pause here for a second just to give you a chance to look over number jump. Okay, so you'll notice with number jump, it suggests that you show your fingers. You show a number on your fingers and have the child jump, or the children jump that many times. So something else that I have used, that I have found works, is using these enlarged counting cards. And I have these prepared from 1 to 10. I will share them as part of the resources so you can use these cards. This also is helpful if you want to do this activity during whole group time. And so another way, you could also, if you're doing small group with a small group of children, depending on the numbers, you can use these cards too. Okay, and if your children are able to read numerals, you can just use the numeral card. Okay, so children are able to use various strategies. You'll see that's listed here: subitizing, hide your hand behind your back, tell them to jump 3 times, right? Then you hide your hand. So that's another way to do this. To make this a little more challenging, you show fingers on both hands, right? So something like jump this many times. And see if children know how much that is, how many it is, or what strategy they use to figure it out. Do they need to do it on their own hands and count them and then jump that many times? Those are some things that you can look out for. Okay, but that could also add another level of making it a little more challenging, or something like 2 on one hand and 1 on another hand. That's another way to play this this activity. And it doesn't have to be number jump, right? This is an easy game for you to do virtually, but it doesn't have to be number jump. It can be number clap. It can be number tap your nose. It can be whatever movement. Going back to the trajectories that we talked about. And so when I look at my small group record sheets here, for number jump, it says accurately produces a number up to. So that means how many times can the children jump with accuracy? Okay, and that's something to really think about. Okay, and you want to plan, because you have data from weeks 6 and 7, you want to plan for the numbers that you are going to ask a child to jump, or the number that they will produce up to. You want to be really intentional about that. We also have number race. Now, number race is the board game that is it's green and it has numbers 1 through 50. It comes with the building blocks curriculum. And so one thing I will say about this, I have found it helpful in the past to limit the number, because going up to 50 can really take a long time. And if you want to get through as many children as you can, limiting the number or giving them a destination, like we're only going to play this game going up to the gas station. And I believe that that might be up to 25. And again, this is producing the number with their, with their figure. You can use any counter to do this. Another way to make this game go a little bit faster is having just one counter and all the children use the same counter. The objective here is to see how many the child can produce, how many movements the child can produce. And so you want to stick with that objective. Yes, you can give children turns and all of that, but the objective is for them to move spaces on a board. And so your small group record sheet here will ask you to count dots on a cube, right? So now we've gone back. It's similar to week number 6, where we're using a cube, count spaces on the board accurately. Okay, something I have found with this game, children will count the space that they're on. And so so if I'm on number 3, children will start counting by saying they count 3 again. The idea is when you move, you start counting, right? So if your cow counter is on number 3, you teach children that you move and then you say 1. You move and then you say 2. So that's a little tip that I have found helpful in the past. There was something else I was going to say. It'll come back to me. So the different cubes so you'll see here that it will call for dots. Now, if week number 6, go back to week number 6, your small group record sheet for week number 6. Which die did you use for your children in week number 6? If you use the virtual cube on YouTube, that's something to note. How did children do with it? Were there any numbers that were tricky for them? Okay, and so I want to just show you some samples of what your cubes can look like. You have these inch cubes in your building blocks kit, and so you can write in the dots, and you can roll the die if you are virtual. You also have a regular die that you can use for this activity. And then if your children are able to read numerals, you would use this die. Okay, so there's some choice there. You also might want to see if there's been any shifts from week number 6 to week number 8 in the different cubes that you're able to use now. Okay, so a few weeks have passed. And if it is that you're going to repeat number 8 after the Thanksgiving, week 8 after the Thanksgiving holiday, you want to also note if your materials changed. So that's something to think about. Okay, so again, limiting the spaces on the board so that you can get through enough children. And you are also thinking about if each child is sharing a counter or if each child will have their own separate counter. That's something to think about as you are playing this game. Okay, so I want to point out this monitoring student progress box for this game. This is for the number race game, which is the board game. If the child is struggling, provide a number cube only up to 3, which is what I showed you here. This is if the child is struggling with this activity. If the child is excelling, you're using a number cube, so similar to this, from 3 to 8. Or ask players to tell you how many it would take to finish the game. Okay, so there's 2 strategies there if a child is really excelling. The other thing that it doesn't mention, but it, you could use the numeral die if they're able to read numerals. Okay, so we have hands-on. Math Center is find the number. And so that might be a fun activity to play. I'm going to pause here for a second so you can read these directions, and we'll come back together. Okay, so something you want to think about for this activity is what materials would you use? Thinking about other themes that you may have going on in your classroom at this time, and you can use materials that are connected to your theme. Okay. Wednesday, you'll see that the warm-up is number jump. Another thing that I want you to think about, if you are in person with your children, this can be an activity that is played outdoors. Another thought here is this is a very simple activity that you can teach your families to play. Okay? And again, it doesn't have to be jumping. It can be tap your nose, tap your head. We also have listen and count. Blueberries for Sal comes back again for our whole group activity. Okay, places, scenes. It's encouraging you to put a numeral card on the table and some counters so that children will have a focus number in order to play this game, right? So we have our places, scenes, or one that the child creates for themselves, and then you give them a target number. 6 if the child is able to count up to 6, or something lower like 4 if they still need to stay within 1 to 5. Okay. So this also mentions monitoring student progress for places, scenes. Have them specifically use the space or beach scene where there are up to 5 items can be counted. And so, let's see. So we have, this is the space scene. And it's suggesting, so I can see here that there are 5 stars. Okay, that's an example of how you can use this specific one. Okay. You have pizza game number 1, which was played in week number 6. This becomes a hands-on activity for during week 8. During week 8. Sorry. Okay, which numeral is 2? And you can have the child select which numeral is 2. Okay, or you can change that depending on the children you're working with. So this reflect question, again, is always a good place to look and see if you can make connections. This could also be a question that you share with families for them to ask their children to find numerals in their home. Okay, Thursday, we have some repeat activities. that we have seen before, and we also have our small group activities listed again on Thursday. So here we see a monitoring student progress for number jump. Children struggle, then you use smaller numbers, right? I think we've talked a lot about that. If the child is excelling, you use larger numbers, or you show fingers on both hands, like we just talked about a little while ago. So jump this many times, tap your nose this many times, right? So this is another option for children, okay? Right, and then we have Friday that these activities repeat. So something that you'll see here on Friday, the listen and count activity has its own monitoring student progress box. So if children are struggling with listen and count, which again could also be done with you if you're virtual, tapping on the side of a table, and then asking children how many they heard. You drop items slower, right? So there's more space in between the items that you're dropping or the tapping that you're doing. Children excel, then you increase the number of items that you drop, okay? I'm gonna pause here. What I would like for you to do is take a minute to jot down some notes. What do you need for week number 8? What materials do you need for week number 8? What things do your families need to know about week number 8? And I'm going to transition to another tool that I want to show you, another resource that you have while you're doing that. So you can also pause this video now just to take some time to do some planning. Okay, so another suggestion, if you need some support with planning your materials or ways to think about any of the things that I've mentioned, please reach out to your coach or to your director. I want to show you another resource that you have access to. And so you all have access to this building blocks website. And so I want to show you some of the things that you can find here. As I mentioned a few minutes ago when we looked at the Monday whole group activity where it says numeral 8. So what I've done here is I've listed week number 8 in my search, and it will bring me to all the resources you have available to you for week number 8. Okay, so I'm just going to walk through these. You have the family letter in Spanish for week number 8. You have the family letter in English for week number 8. You have the teacher edition sheets. If you don't have your book, you can also look here. The teacher resource guide, as I mentioned earlier, these can be found in the teacher resource guide, and they can be downloaded here. You see it, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th option on your list. You are also able to print your small group record sheets from this website. Okay, so the one thing that I did not find listed here, so I'm gonna go back for a second. I know that week number 1 has the Where's One large book. the big book that I mentioned to you. Okay, hold on one second. Let's go back to the home screen. So Connect Ed. We're clicking on our Building Blocks Pre-K Online Teacher Resource, clicking there. And another way that I can search is clicking here. And so I want week number 8. Actually, I'm going to search Where's One in the search engine because I was not able to find it another way. So here you will see that you have this Where's One book, and for Monday, week number 8, it highlights the number 6. And so again, this book has lots of items for children to count. It has a lot of numerals available for children to see the numeral, right? Going back to one of the week 8 the math throughout the year activity says to really find numerals in your environment. This is a very easy way to play or to do that activity. Okay. And it also has lots of stop signs so children can look at some of the shapes because by now they've had experience with different shapes. And here, so the next page, we are looking for number 6, and here we are. So this can be projected if you are working remotely. Okay, you'll show children the book just the way I'm showing you here and asking them if they can find all the 6 items in this picture. Okay, and if you are remote, then you're asking them to tell you with their words where they see the 6 items. So this is an example of the resource that you have available, whether you're in person or you are remote. I'm going to show you another resource that I know that we have talked about in the past. Okay. I'll share my screen here. Okay, so you have the learningtrajectories.org website. This website is created by the same creators that wrote the Building Blocks materials. And so what's really great about this website, you will be able to download PDF versions in both English and in Spanish. And so I wanted to point out some of the resources you have available to you. This would be a great website to share with your families, or you can download items from this website to share. Okay, so you'll see here where it says click on for families, and it will bring you to even a video, right? So if you're meeting with a family individually via Zoom or another virtual platform, you can show these items to them or have them look at this video here. And so they're very short clips. We'll watch this one briefly.
What are you doing? Are you building a tower? Oh, it fell over. Should I try again?
Okay, so that's a very brief video that you can share with families and talk about all the learning that's happening with that child, talking about shapes and things of that nature. You'll see here that they have a list of early math books, right? This is something that, again, you can share with families as a resource that they can also find these books on YouTube, so they don't have to spend any money. So quick tips for supporting math at home. Check out this resource again, as I mentioned to you, it's both in English and in Spanish. And then the other thing is there are really great articles about early math experiences, especially if you have families that want children to move on to adding and subtracting. Right now, we're working on counting, and showing them these learning trajectories on a website like this could encourage them to understand the process that children will go through in order to get to that adding and subtracting trajectory. So again, this is from learningtrajectories.org, and this is birth to third grade. So whether you're working in pre-K or you're working in with toddlers, this is a great resource to share with your families. Okay, I want to show you, we talked a lot about learning trajectories, and I want to give you some insight, a little more insight about how a learning trajectory works.
Many people have worked with mathematics goals, and that's led to some standards. Many people have worked with how does these kind of ideas develop in children? What are the levels of thinking through which kids most go through on their way to achieving a goal? And that's helped us build better assessments. And also, we've studied teaching techniques, teaching strategies, and curricula, and that's helped us build better curriculum and teaching. But Julie and I believe that only a scientific approach to learning trajectories weaves those three areas of research together so that standards, curriculum, teaching, and assessment all come from a common research base and a common perspective. That kind of coherence is very important. So for us, a learning trajectory has three parts: a goal, that's the mathematical content, a developmental progression of levels of thinking that kids pass on their way to achieving that goal. That's the kids' thinking and understanding. And instructional activities, that's the guidance for teachers. And this isn't just general guidance. There is some, sure. But what we mean here in a learning trajectory is instructional activities that differ in subtle ways sometimes for every single level of the developmental progression. So you are targeting just the kind of teaching that kids need.
So something I want to remind you of, at the back of your teacher edition, you have the learning trajectories listed. That's the B section of your TE. You also have the professional development section of your TE, which is the differentiated instruction, as Doug was mentioning in that video. And that is the A section of your teacher edition. Okay, so again, this is a resource that is available to you. It is very much aligned with the building blocks curriculum because it was created by the same people, Doug and Julie Clements. And so I want you to be able to lean on those resources. And so one thing I want to show you here, it talks about support for distance learning, which I believe a lot of us are currently experiencing right now. Okay, and so here it shows different activities for distant learning. There are some computer activities that are also available on this website. Okay, and this teacher is talking about shapes. Is it or not circles? Week number 9, we'll be moving into geometry for week 9 and 10. And so week number 9, I will record another video for you. The thinking behind that is because it's the holiday season and our schedules are different. Our days our weeks might be shorter. There might be other things going on in our environment. And so therefore we've decided to record week 8, as you have just seen, and we're going to record week number 9. But just for you to get ready for week number 9, we are going back to counting activities for week number 9. I'm sorry, we're going back to shapes, geometry for week number 9 and 10. Okay, please reach out to your coach and or your director for guidance on week number 8. I will also send you resources with this video and also a feedback form just to kind of clarify how this has felt for you. What have you learned from a video experience like this? And just getting some additional feedback if this is the right mode of learning that's best for you. And if you're making it to the end of this video and you also complete the feedback form, I will send you a certificate for your time. Okay, again, reach out to your coach if you have questions. And I thank you for watching to the end. I look forward to working with you again soon. Goodbye.